If American businessman Paul Zimmer had known in 1978 how much buying an Excalibur SSK would change his life, a strange luxury car styled after the Mercedes-Benz SSK of the 1920s. Instead of simply enjoying his expensive new toy, Zimmer quickly realized he could build a car just like it himself, only even more luxurious, even more expensive, and make a fortune doing it. What came out of that idea is the story we're about to tell. The United States has always been a country built by immigrants, so it's hardly surprising that entrepreneurs of German descent left such a major mark on the history of the American auto industry. Just think of August and Frederick Studebaker, Henry Kaiser, or William Bezerdick. Judging by the surname, Paul Zimmer's ancestors likely came to America from Germany as well, although there's no way to say that with complete certainty. As mentioned earlier, Paul Zimmer bought an Excalibur SSK in 1978, and much to his surprise, discovered there was nothing particularly remarkable about the car besides its flashy neoclassic styling. In Zimmer's opinion, a car that expensive could have been done much better. By that point, money was definitely not a problem for him. Zimmer owned several companies involved in home building, yachts, and motorhomes, so the purchase hardly put a dent in his finances. More importantly, he and his son Robert had already started thinking about expanding into the car business. The Zimmers believed that while demand for cars like these would never be huge, it would always be steady. After all, wealthy buyers would always exist, and some of them would always want a modern car that looked like it had rolled straight out of pre-war America. Of course, the Zimmers had no intention of developing their own platform from scratch, so they decided to use an existing one instead. Their choice was the Ford Mustang. The wheelbase was stretched, the interior was completely redesigned with as much leather and wood trim as possible, and a fiberglass body was fitted over the chassis. The design of the first Zimmer also stayed very close to the same Mercedes-Benz SSK-inspired formula. In many ways, the Zimmer Golden Spirit became a direct competitor to the Excalibur SSK. Every car was built for a specific customer, which meant prices started at $65,000 and could climb almost without limit. The Zimmers were perfectly happy with that arrangement. If a client was willing to pay, the company was ready to build just about anything they wanted. At first glance, a car with that many modifications should have created serious registration problems. But that was the clever part. In many cases, the car was still registered as a regular Ford Mustang, which, underneath, it essentially remained. The engine, transmission, suspension, steering system, and even emissions equipment all came directly from Ford, so legally the car met all the required regulations, at least in the United States. And not only there, Zimmer cars were also sold freely in Europe and the Middle East. Business was going fairly well for the company. At the very least, no worse than the Zimmers themselves had expected. Before long, that gave them enough confidence to start thinking about expanding the lineup. In 1986, Zimmer introduced its second model, the mid-engine Zimmer Quicksilver, built on the Pontiac Fiero platform. The new coupe received positive reviews from the American automotive press, with journalists praising both the high-quality leather and wood interior and the car's genuinely stylish design. Power came from the same 2.8-liter V6 used in the Pontiac Fiero, producing 140 horsepower and 230 newton-meters of torque, paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. By mid-'80s standards, the performance was respectable as well. Weighing 1,325 kilograms, the coupe reached 100 kilometers per hour in 9.8 seconds and had a top speed of 194 kilometers per hour. In many ways, the Quicksilver was a genuinely solid automobile, and it was priced noticeably lower than the Golden Spirit. Prices started at $48,000 and, much like other Zimmer models, could rise almost without limit. From the outside, things seemed to be going fairly well. A small company with its own niche, steady orders, and wealthy customers. But by early 1988, it had become clear that neither the Quicksilver nor the Golden Spirit nor Zimmer Motor Car Corporation itself had much of a future. In total, around 1,500 Golden Spirits were built, while Quicksilver production reached only 170 cars. In July 1989, the company officially declared bankruptcy. At the time, the reason for such a sudden collapse was fairly obvious, although today it is remembered far less often. Everyone remembers the Great Depression and the 1973 oil crisis, but the mid and late 80s are usually seen as a calm and stable period for the American economy. In reality, things were far less stable than they appeared. On October 19, 1987, the United States was hit by what became known as Black Monday. In a single day, the American stock market lost roughly $1.5 trillion in value. Even the crash of October 29, 1929, the event that marked the beginning of the Great Depression, did not look quite as catastrophic within the span of a single trading day. By October 1987, Paul Zimmer's construction business was already on the verge of bankruptcy, and Zimmer Motor Car Corporation quickly began sinking along with it. As often happens in situations like this, the problems of the parent company rapidly dragged the rest of the business down as well. The Zimmers probably never expected to go down in American automotive history as the creators of one of the lowest production luxury cars ever built in the United States. It was hardly the kind of legacy they would have wanted. But staying afloat in American business was never easy. And it would seem that after an ending like that, the story of Zimmer was finally over. But what happened next felt less like real automotive history and more like something out of a Hollywood movie. In 1995, another American businessman of German descent named Art Zimmer happened to spot a Zimmer Golden Spirit on the street and became fascinated by the car. His surprise was hard to describe when he realized the car carried his own last name. He had never heard of the brand before, had no relation whatsoever to Paul Zimmer, and turned out to be nothing more than a man with the same surname. After doing some research and learning that the company had been gone since 1989, Art Zimmer decided to bring it back. He bought the rights to the brand from the previous owners and even acquired some of the equipment from the former Zimmer factory in Pompano Beach. Art Zimmer opened his new business in the small town of Cambridge, Maryland, although calling it a real automobile factory would have been a massive exaggeration. It was much closer to a small workshop that serviced older Zimmer cars and provided technical support for their owners. Despite its very modest scale, the company carried an impressively long name, Art Zimmer Neoclassic Motor Car Company. But Art Zimmer had no intention of limiting himself to servicing old cars, because the entire project existed for one reason: building new Zimmer automobiles. Customers could order either a two-door or a four-door version of the new generation Zimmer Golden Spirit. The two-door model started at $109,900 and was based on the fourth or fifth generation Ford Mustang. The four-door version, built on the Lincoln Town Car chassis, cost an even more staggering $175,900. Every car was built specifically for its buyer, and completing an order usually took between 6 and 8 weeks. Naturally, there were no lines of customers waiting to buy them. At best, Art Zimmer's company managed to sell only a few dozen cars per year. And this is where one very important detail should be mentioned. The original Zimmer cars from the Paul Zimmer era, despite all their eccentricity, still look surprisingly cohesive. Even the Golden Spirit, controversial as it was, had a certain harmony to its design, while the Quicksilver genuinely looked like something that could have appeared as a low-volume concept car from one of the big three automakers. The cars built during the Art Zimmer years, however, lacked that fragile balance entirely. They looked like Ford Mustangs or Lincoln Town Cars, with neoclassic front and rear sections awkwardly grafted onto them. At times, the results resembled some kind of automotive Frankenstein creation. Even so, the company somehow managed to survive until Art Zimmer's death in 2005. After that, things gradually declined, and in 2018, Zimmer disappeared for the second time. Today, Zimmer cars still appear on the used market from time to time. Because production numbers were so low, they remain fairly rare, although by American standards, they are not especially expensive. Prices usually hover around $20,000, depending on the condition of the car. And beyond their unusual styling, these cars do have one practical advantage. Most mechanical parts come directly from the Ford Mustang, Pontiac Fiero, and Lincoln Town Car. Even body repairs are usually not much of a problem, since the United States still has plenty of small shops experienced in working with fiberglass. That was the end of one of the strangest and most distinctive automotive projects America ever produced. and possibly the only car company that managed to go bankrupt twice.